Hi, I'm Trisha Wolf, licensed professional counselor who specializes in working with people with trauma. And today I want to talk a little bit about why getting outside is such a great practice for people who have experienced trauma. So when we've experienced trauma, it's really common for our nervous system to either go into a heightened state where we're really anxious and stressed all of the time, or into a collapsed state where our nervous system goes into freeze and we feel really numb and down and fatigued. And when we're in both of those states, it's really difficult for us to connect to the world around us, to people, to those that we care about, and to get that back online, to be able to connect, to be able to hear the birds and to see and to connect to others we love. We have to take it really slowly. We don't want to bring it back online right away because that would be shocking to a nervous system that's already in a compressed state. And so sometimes traditional mindfulness activities or even things like yoga can be too much for our bodies when we've experienced trauma. But getting outside, even doing a little short walk around your block, can bring a lot of opportunities to practice something called the orienting response. The orienting response is something that mammals do, where essentially you're looking around, and when you're turning your head and you're taking things in with your eyes, you're actually connecting to a part of your body that lets you know on a subconscious level that you're safe. And so when we're in this sort of collapsed state or this activated state, we're not taking things in. Our eyes can often get sort of zoned in and hyper-focused, like we're looking for a predator. And we might not hear sounds around us like bird song because we're kind of zoning out, or we're hyper-focused waiting to hear everything around us is okay. And our body can get really tight and tense. And that's okay because it's trying to protect you. But when you're wanting to learn how to be in a more neutral state, not relaxed, not good, but just more neutral, less tight or less collapsed, practicing that orienting response in a really safe, slow, titrated, which is another way of saying slow, way is a great way to start to get your nervous system used to little bits at a time, taking more in from the world around you. When we support our nervous system into getting into a more neutral state, we're actually supporting something in our body called the vagus nerve. Vagus means wandering in Latin, and it's a nerve that goes all throughout our body, all the way down to our gut, and it's very closely tied in with our nervous system, our fight, our flight, and our freeze and our fawn. That nervous system response is very closely tied in with that vagus nerve. And so when we have experienced trauma, whether long in our past or recently, that vagus nerve can put on an emergency brake. And so when that happens, our nervous system goes into that survival response. And that's when the vagus nerve social engagement system, which runs all through our eyes, our face, our ears, it's what lets us hear tone of voice, it's what lets us take in others' faces to know that they're safe, that starts to go offline. That can be really difficult in our daily lives, where maybe we see everybody as a threat. Why is that person looking at me? Are they mad at me? Is their face looking angry? Is their tone of voice scary? We're feeling that way all the time because our social engagement system is not able to closely read the signals when we're in that collapsed state. And so it can make things really confusing going through our daily lives, trying to connect to our boss or our colleagues, trying to connect to our partners or friends, or even trying to connect to ourselves. And so when we practice this orienting response, we can actually help that social engagement part of our vagus nerve to come back online. And when we do that, our eyes get softer, we can take things in more accurately, we can read signals from other people better, we can set boundaries if we are there, we can hear tone of voice and not be as scared. And so to think about the difference, imagine your eyes locked in on something, you're watching something coming towards you that's scary and you're not sure what's happening. Versus imagine standing on top of a mountaintop and taking in the scene, the vista in front of you. And even just thinking about that, I notice how my eyes start to soften and I can see all around me into my peripheral vision. That is what we start to bring online when we're outside and we're taking things in around us and practicing that little orienting response. So, for example, one way we can practice it is with our eyes. So while you're watching this video, maybe you're looking at the scenery around me. Maybe you can try taking in 3 different colors. So maybe you see the brown of this stick behind me, and maybe you can see the sort of coppery color of this creek, and maybe you take in some of the green leaves growing in behind me, and you just did it. You just started practicing that orienting response within yourself. Maybe as you're listening to me, you can also hear the birds chirping in the background. I like to bring my binoculars when I go on a walk so that I can look for the birds up in the trees, but you don't have to do that to practice the orienting response. You can stand here and listen for a moment. And just hear the different types of birds. And when you do that, I notice to my nervous system, it brings a little settling, a little bit of a deeper breath, and it invokes that orienting response. It's normal if you are in periods of stress or have chronic experience of trauma that when you go outside and you try to take things in, it may not feel natural. It might feel kind of clunky. In fact, you might even notice that if you go out for a walk, you come back and you don't even know what you saw on your walk or heard. And that's okay. That's because our nervous system is focused on listening for predators versus taking things in around us. And that's what happens when that vagus brake comes on, or when we're in a sympathetic fight or flight. The brain isn't saying, let me take in this beautiful scenery. Let me listen to these birds. The brain is saying, there's an emergency happening. We're not going to spend energy taking things in or listening for beautiful sounds. We're going to be focused on what keeps us safe. I'm in a creek preserve near my house, and I walk through here all the time. And for the first several weeks that I walked through here, I was under a period of big stress in my life. And there were so many little things in this area that I never noticed. I maybe noticed this boardwalk that I'm standing on. But for example, back here, it's kind of hard to see. There's a beautiful sculpture of a woman raising her hands. And it was weeks of walking through here before I even noticed her. And that's okay, because this is not a test or a skill that we're trying to build. This is simply a practice of noticing what we notice. And one day I noticed it there, and I was so excited because I knew that my nervous system was settling a little bit, because I was able to take her in and take in the statue of an owl that's over here. Now, for some people, going outside on a walk might not feel safe, even a short walk, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you, and it's okay to meet yourself where you're at. Something you can try wherever you are that feels safer is to look around the space that you're in and see if you can name 3 different colors you see. See if you can pick one color and find all the things in the space that you're in that match that color. See if maybe when you name the colors, you can also feel something in your body, even if it's just your hair touching your neck, or the texture of the clothes that you're wearing, or the shoes that you have on your feet, or your feet touching the ground. If you can't feel those things and it feels like too much, it's okay to start where you're at with just picking one color and seeing what you see. If you want to try going outside and going around your block, try picking a color, maybe green. It's a pretty easy one to work with when you're outside, and just seeing if you can notice 3 different shades of green on your walk, or seeing if you can notice 3 different types of trees or leaves, or seeing if you could even notice just one tree on your walk that maybe you haven't taken in before. Maybe you live in a city where there's not a lot of bird song around for you to listen to. That's okay. It's okay to just take in what's around you and say, oh, I hear the cars driving by, or I hear someone talking. This is just a practice and something you can try out, and you can work your way up to a bigger practice. I walk through here every day for about an hour, and I've worked up to that. And it sets my day off on a different foot when I can come out, walk through here, take in all the colors, all the different types of trees, all the bird song, and it just lets my nervous system settle. So this is an invitation for you that if you have somewhere nearby, even if it's a tiny little park, or even if it's going around your block, where you can take something in that's different, and try seeing the colors, try seeing the textures. All the trees have different colored barks. If you're somewhere where you're allowed to, try touching the different barks on the tree. If not, just try looking at them and seeing how would you describe them to someone who wasn't able to see the trees. If you just want to go out in your yard where you are, try taking your shoes off if that feels okay and putting your feet in the grass. What does that feel like for you? Maybe you don't like it, and that's okay. Put your shoes back on. What felt uncomfortable about it for you? Or maybe it feels soft. Maybe it's a little wet from the morning dew. Maybe you notice the shade of green that the grass is. So I just invite you to consider this as a practice in your life where you can try on this orienting response to support your vagus nerve towards more neutrality in a really slow way where you are.